Welcome in here to Carps Corner, and apologize taking a couple days off here. A little tired at Memorial Day weekend. With that came a lot of different things. Obviously, the commemoration of Memorial Day, getting outside. It's the unofficial opening of summer in my mind. School's almost out if it's not already out. You have the pools opening up, and of course, you have the launch of Top Gun 2 Maverick, which I'll get into a minute. Nick Saban down at SEC coaches meetings in Destin, Florida. He had some comments here to follow up. He had to go back to the mic. All the coaches are required to do it. So he had to go down to the mic down in Destin, Florida in the Panhandle and answer some questions there. Aaron Donald had some comments, potentially about his career and how that ultimately is going to be looking moving forward. And should he keep playing? He talked, potentially about retirement. It would be, devastating, I think, to see an elite player like Aaron Donald, who we've come to know and love, and is one of the best defensive players in the NFL, and probably one of the best all times. I believe he's 7 consecutive first team all pro. And so with that, comments about him potentially hanging it up, what that looks like. Kenny Pickett, job isn't going to be gifted to him in Pittsburgh. And what's the best way to kind of go about that for a quarterback? Tampa Bay picking up a defensive lineman, and also some positive comments about Matt Ryan and what he's doing out in Indianapolis. I want to start off though with Memorial Day. I got to play for the Patriots, and it was unbelievable to sit there and watch Bill Belichick. And going into Memorial Day weekend, it's obviously a time when a lot of players can get in trouble, guys get arrested, DUIs, all kinds of issues come up. And Bill would always address it for that reason, but also to make sure that guys understood how great of a country you live in, and the ability you're able to generationally change the trajectory of your family simply by playing a game, by playing the game of football. And so understanding the sacrifices that men and women have made for 200 years for this country, and the fact that the last Monday in May is our opportunity to thank their loved ones, because you can't thank them, but to thank their loved ones for donating the life of a father, of a mother, spouse, child, aunt, uncle, cousin, whatever it might be, in defense of this nation. So Pat Tillman is a guy who I always looked up to, and passed away when I was in college. Turned down millions of dollars in the NFL to go play and serve his nation overseas. Ultimately lost his life tragically, unfortunately, over there. But you look at people like him, and those are like, people ask, who are your role models? Like that's a guy, those type of people. Pat Tillman, that was my role model growing up. That's why I grew my long hair out in college. AJ Hawk and Anthony Schlegel, myself, the three of us kind of did that to pay homage to him. He had that sweet long hair when he played with the Cardinals and when he played at ASU. But, understanding how important that was. And so if you have time, sit down, talk to your kids. If you got family, talk to some young people, and just explain to them what Memorial Day is all about. It's the day we get around, we barbecue, we open the pools, we get to do a lot of great things, but understand why we get to do them and who ultimately sacrificed for us to be able to do that. And so it's not Veterans Day, but I always like to thank vets when I see them on Memorial Day as well. Through sacrifices of people that they were with, some of those folks got to come home. And so understanding that, and then going in, obviously, the decorating of the grave sites and honoring them and the American flags that are put up. It's a very emotional experience, and it's very, very impactful. And having friends that served, a father-in-law that served, uncles that have served, like that's something that it's pretty darn unique, and it's special. And so understanding that, just take a minute, always press pause on Memorial Day and remember what it's about. And so with that, Friday, I went and saw Top Gun Maverick. Took my 3 boys, 12, 9, and 5. They all loved it. They enjoyed it. My wife was up with my daughter in Toledo playing soccer. They came back down. So Monday, got another IMAX Dolby surround sound. Boom, dove in. Saw it early at 11 so we could still get out and enjoy some of the festivities on Memorial Day. But it's really, really tough to have a sequel that lives up to the original with the hype that Top Gun had. When you watch that first one, you love it. It's been 35 years in the making. And I was worried that they were just going to try to wash, rinse, and repeat, have the same story. And yeah, there's elements of that. They pulled enough of the iconic scenes, reproduced them, and did so like in a way that you can laugh at it. But the character development, the story, everything that ultimately goes into it is absolutely tremendous. It's something that I never thought that I would be that emotional watching the movie. But Tom Cruise at 60 delivers an unbelievable performance. Teller does a great job playing Rooster Goose's son. And Jennifer Connelly, man, she at 52 years old nails it, nails her part, looks fantastic, but does a great job playing Penny Benjamin. And so with that, like when you watch this, and tons of people have gone out and watched it, old, young, if you've seen the first one, if you haven't, it helps to see the first. My kids loved it. My daughter loved it. Wife loved it. I would be willing to see it a third time in theaters. And I love movies. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw a movie more than once in theaters, let alone going to see something for a third time. Like it just doesn't happen. But pulling in the nostalgia there of Memorial Day, understanding everything that went on with the filming of that movie, how much it cost, been sitting for 2 years and coming out in a patriotic movie like that, man, it tugs at your heartstrings a little bit. And it's pretty darn special and pretty darn elite. So, man, I really enjoyed that. So on to some of the news of the day. And Nick Saban, down at SEC Media Days, speaking yesterday, getting into some of his stuff with Dabo Swinney and everything that was going on with that. Or not Dabo Swinney, I always want to say Jimbo Fisher, my goodness. Jimbo Fisher and everything that was going on with that. And Saban basically said the same line he said with Jacob Hester and I. Throw this up here. I really didn't say that anyone did anything wrong. I didn't say anybody did anything wrong. Okay, I've said everything I'm going to say about this. I should have never mentioned any individual institutions, and I've said that before. All right, and so you get that. He regrets putting their name on it, especially the name of a guy who he coached with, I think, and everything that's gone on now and how it's kind of blown up. And yeah, I think that he acknowledges that was a massive mistake. He said it. He apologized for it. What else do you ultimately want the guy to do? So he goes on to say, we'll throw up the sec. We need some transparency in name, image, and likeness deals to verify that the players are doing what they need to do to have the opportunity to make money in name, image, and likeness. And believe me, I'm all for players making as much as they can make, okay? But I also think that we've got to have some uniform, transparent way to do that. Our players did extremely well last year in name, image, and likeness because they got agents. They had representation. They had people who wanted them to actually endorse something for them. And they did that very, very well. That's public record. And you can see how well they did. I think Nick's begging. I think a lot of coaches are begging now. I've said it. I don't know how to go about doing it. Some smart people need to get in a room. They need to talk to the ADs. They talk to forget the presidents, universities, ADs, coaches, talk to legislative bodies in different states and figure out, hey, what are some uniform rules that we can figure out that everybody can live by so that we can have a sustainable product and a sustainable game with relative competitive balance. It's never going to be competitive balance. There never was uniform competitive balance, but just to be able to have something that you can sit there and understand that these are the rules that everybody's playing by. They're all the same. And it's not simply recruiting inducements. There are actually endorsements that are out there and people are endorsing things. And that is how they're earning the revenue, not simply by just getting basically checks to sign places. I think that is what most of the coaches ultimately want. And figuring out a way to do that, it's not exactly easy, but hopefully someone can figure that out down the line. And we'll get a chance, hear Jimbo Fisher. I'm curious what his thoughts are going to be on this thing today, what he's going to ultimately say. I doubt he'll probably go at Saban straight up. That's not really his style. He already did it. He's addressed it. He's probably buried it. Hey, people are going to talk about our program. We did it the right way. And that's probably all he's going to say. We didn't break any rules, and they didn't break any rules. The fact that he said, that so few players actually got NIL deals, that's probably where this thing diverts a little bit. I think it's fairly, say fairly well documented, but I think people have acknowledged that, they had some collectives at work, and it's within the scope of what's allowed right now. And so they didn't do anything wrong. And that's perfectly okay. So curious to hear Jimbo's retort. Now, moving into a little bit of NFL news, Aaron Donald coming out. And this is something the Rams going to have to deal with. Aaron Donald, most dominant defensive player in the NFL. I believe he's been 7 consecutive first team all pros, which is incredibly difficult to do, especially at a position like defensive line where you take a pounding. He has been disrupted. He's won multiple defensive player of the year awards. Whenever they needed a big play, he provided to them. He came out and said, hey, my plan was always to play 8 years, win a Super Bowl. Went to a Super Bowl before, lost, went to one last season, ultimately won it. What's a new contract? Who doesn't? He should be probably the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. I think that's kind of should be acknowledged because of how good he is. Problem is his contracts are signed, the salary cap moves, new benchmarks come, and that's just the reality of how it works. And so the Rams, as they try to keep this thing together, it's going to be tough for them to try to balance this because Aaron Donald, he can walk away. He's made plenty of money. I think he still loves the game. But here's one thing that people, don't realize. It's not like every year you just start back at the playoffs again. You're going to the Super Bowl. You start at square one. Aaron Donald is a relentless trainer. Dude is a grinder. So he goes through all offseason, getting ready on his own, then going through lifting and organized team activities, their spring practices basically, and then into mini camp. Then you have some time off in July. You train on your own again. You go into training camp. You grind through 17 games. Then you get to the playoffs. Then it's win or go home. And all that first part that I talked about, especially when you play in the Super Bowl and you don't get really any offseason, you try to throttle back, that's taken 7-8 months of your life, of dedication, of getting after it. And yeah, you take weekends off here, you take a week here or there, but man, it's psychologically demanding. And then to get back in that arena is really, really hard. So I understand where Aaron Donald's at. I think he wants a new deal. I think he probably wants to play a couple more years as long as he's still healthy. But the Rams are going to have to figure that darn thing out because Aaron Donald isn't going to play for free. I don't think he really wants to hold out. But if he did, I don't think anybody would sit there and say that he doesn't deserve every dime that he can ultimately get. Guy's been phenomenal. He's been absolutely unbelievable. So now on to some other NFL news. Kenny Pickett drafted in the first round by the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a quote here that I'm going to throw up in a minute, talking about playing time, this and that. And he played at Pitt. He's the presumptive savior there to go in and replace Big Ben. And the Steelers, they don't hire and fire coaches willy-nilly. They get quarterbacks, they ride them out. They've been the model franchise for developing, coaches and then giving quarterbacks and players time to develop that should draft. And if you are good in your evaluation of coaches and players, then you don't need to turn them all the time. Kenny Pickett, come here, we'll throw this up, said, I didn't think I was going to walk in and be the number one. It's kind of what I was expecting, just to come in here and earn everything I get. So what Kenny Pickett was referencing was the fact that, he's running third team now. He's sitting there and Kenny Pickett is ultimately behind Mitchell Trubisky, who they brought in. You got to remember, was the number 2 overall pick for the Chicago Bears. Maybe it didn't end the way that he wanted it to. Maybe he didn't have a ton of success there. He did make a Pro Bowl, but that's watered down. Almost every quarterback does. It's who chooses to opt out. Sitting behind Josh Allen last year in Buffalo, maybe that helped him. But I think he's in a good spot here with Pittsburgh. So he's got to beat out Mitchell Trubisky. Mason Rudolph's still there. Now, I don't think Mason Rudolph has the physical skills, but he does know the system a lot better. And so is there a better way to do it? Should you walk in and gift guys a job and just say you're the starter from day one? Or should you make them grind and earn it? And there's 2 cool schools of thought. I was a rookie for Bill Parcells. He wanted guys to earn everything they got. Now, it's a little different if you're drafting a quarterback and everybody knows the guy that you took, you intend on starting, unless he's just not ready. And then it's almost a miss for you as a team. And so we'll see what Kenny Pickett is made of. I honestly think Mitch Trubisky will probably give him a run for his money. They're going to give Kenny Pickett every opportunity to earn that starting job. But make no mistake about it. Like Mitchell Trubisky has played in the NFL. Granted, he hasn't been the best, but there is something to experience. And if you listen to all of the scouts this year and anybody that did evaluations, this wasn't a strong quarterback class. Like there's a good chance in other drafts, Kenny Pickett goes in the 3rd round based upon physical ability. And so with that, I'm not 100% certain that he'll be able to beat out Mitch Trubisky. And I'm curious if Mitch plays, how well he does. Pittsburgh, they've got some work to do. Their team obviously isn't set up right now. They've got to continue to mold that roster. And they're in a really tough division with Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Baltimore, all whom have established quarterbacks who are looking to make a run. But I'm not sure if is it better to start that quarterback? Is it better to put him in there day one as the presumptive starter, and so that everybody on the team knows and he can develop leadership? But the problem is if you do that and then he struggles, well, then do you pull him back? Because you can't fool the room. And if everybody on the team knows that one of the backups is playing better than the starter, they're putting their work in, they're doing everything they can, their blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah, you're getting paid to do it, but you want to make sure you have the best opportunity to go out there and win games. And so if everyone sees that you're maybe not playing the best player and playing someone simply due to their draft positioning, well, that's not going to fly in the locker room either. And I know Mike Tomlin's not going to be about that. And so this is this delicate balance, this walk that Pittsburgh has to do, something they haven't worried about for almost 20 years since they drafted Big Ben. And he was the guy who came in early, big arm, made some plays, got him to Super Bowl early in his career. Made enough, wasn't a liability out there. Can Kenny Pickett be the same thing? Well, I don't think this Pittsburgh team's quite as talented as the one that Ben inherited, but they are an organization that does things the right way. But it would not shock me if Kenny Pickett is not the day one starter. I think Pittsburgh wants him to be, but I don't think Mike Tomlin is going to force him out there if he's not ready, just to prove that, hey, this is our guy. We drafted him high. Let's get him in there and let's play him, because that hardly ever works. Some news out of Tampa Bay. Tom Brady's returning. Everybody knows that. Looked like you thought Ndamukong Suh would come back. Him and Vita Vea have been a dynamic force inside. 2 guys playing interior defensive line that have wrecked some games. Now, Ndamukong Suh is a 1st-round draft pick back in Detroit. I played with him for a couple seasons there. He's not probably the player that he used to be, but he's still very effective inside. When he was paired there with Aaron Donald in Los Angeles, I mean, he's effective out there. Like he's been a really good player. He finally got his Super Bowl, but the Bucs just made a move, $10 million up to this season for Akeem Hicks, who, when healthy with the Chicago Bears, one of the most dominant interior guys you were going to find. So now Vita Vea, Akeem Hicks inside for Tampa Bay. Real dynamic duo. And so Tom Brady has to feel good about this. Todd Bowles has to love this move, because if you look, when you pair him with Shaq Barrett, you saw what they were able to do to a dynamic Kansas City Chiefs offense in the Super Bowl a couple years back. When you can get pressure up front and not just on the edges, also inside, and you've got a guy that can wreck games now, Vita Vea, Akeem Hicks, Shaq Barrett coming off the edge, man, that's doing a lot of damage. That's doing a lot of damage to opposing offenses, because they can't get going. You can't establish the run, and it's tough for a quarterback to be good when he always has defenders in his lap. So Akeem Hicks signing in Tampa Bay, I think, could end up going down as one of the sneaky big signings that you're going to see in this NFL offseason. And now lastly, I'm going to finish with this. Indianapolis Colts. I think they made the right move. Carson Wentz wasn't the guy. Phillip Rivers had retired. You've got a team, in my mind, that's set to win. You've got a really good defense. You've got some good young offensive weapons. You've got Pittman out at receiver. You've got Jonathan Taylor at running back. Your offensive line's still pretty good. Like, you have a lot of things that are going for you. You just need the signal guy. That signal guy was supposed to be Andrew Luck. That ship sailed. Phillip Rivers, he retired. Carson Wentz, you knew wasn't the guy. So you go get Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan is perfect for this. He's accurate. He throws the ball well. He knows the game. He's a veteran voice the games and moments won't be too big for him. Remember, he's been to a Super Bowl. Granted, he gave up the biggest lead in Super Bowl history. Now, Matt Ryan is perfect. I think Pittman recognizes it and understands. He's played with a lot of these guys. He knows how important it is. We're talking about his accuracies. I'll throw this up. Pittman said, the ball is right there. You just turn and catch the ball. I mean, he makes it easy. Matt can pretty much put it wherever he wants. And when you have a quarterback that can do that, then you know what? Maybe he's not as athletic as he used to be. And he was never a great athlete. Maybe he doesn't have quite the arm strength that he used to, but he's playing in a dome. He's got really good weapons. He has really good receivers. They're playing Houston and Jacksonville for 4 of their games. Tennessee is good, but they're not an overwhelmingly explosive juggernaut. You know, they obviously can pound the rock on you, and they have a really good defense. They're well coached, but it's not like they're miles ahead of you. You're probably on par with them in a lot of areas. And so Matt Ryan, I think, in a crowded AFC, which is the only thing I don't like about this situation for him, with all the great quarterbacks, I think this is the perfect place for Matt Ryan to finish his career, continuing to play in a dome. He has weapons all around him. He's in a pretty good spot. I like Frank Wright as a coach. I like the offense of how they run it. And he's going to have weapons, and he's accurate, and he'll be able to get the ball out of his hand and let his guys make plays. And so I'm going to monitor that early and often during the season to see how he's playing, because I think there's a chance that he could be an MVP candidate in that offense with those weapons. Not a front runner, but I'd have to go look at the odds. I'm going to dig that up. And I think it might be worth throwing a couple of shekels, just like I thought Matt Stafford was a good bet last year. You know, Aaron Rodgers ultimately takes it home again. Matt Stafford, he ultimately won a Super Bowl. He played great. And I think Matt Ryan is going to have one of his best seasons in the last 4 or 5 years. Well, that concludes this edition of Carps Corner. Thank you for watching and listening once again. Be sure to subscribe it, like it, comment, tell me if there's stuff you guys want me to talk about. Share it with the other folks. I love all the support. I really appreciate it. Going to be exciting to kind of get through this summer and then ultimately get ramped up for football season in the fall. But don't wish the summer away. Be sure to enjoy it.